Good evening, everyone, and welcome to This Week from Rockdale. And as usual, I am your host, Larry Cox, and I'm glad to welcome each and every one of you to the show tonight. And we're going to have a great show tonight. So, I've got a couple people that are going to be on the show tonight. I've got a guest host on the show tonight also. I'm going to introduce him right now, and that is Mr. Ken Holmes. Good evening, Ken. How are you doing today?
Hello, Larry. How are you?
I'm doing good, Clint. It's glad to have you on here. And I thought it would be great to have a guest host tonight to interview our next candidate guest. You are the editor of the Rockdale Voter, and we've got a lot of information out there. And I think we have our next guest is actually has his profile on the Rockdale Voter also.
Absolutely.
But it's very important that we give the citizens of Rockdale County an opportunity to engage and meet with the candidates that are running for office. So this is going to be a two-segment show tonight. First segment is going to be majority of the show will be with former Chairman Oden, and we're going to discuss his campaign and what he wants to do for the county. And the last quarter of the show, we're going to discuss election interference by the superintendent of schools, Terry Oates, and we will go into that in that last quarter of the show. But for right now, guys, why don't you share and like this show so we can grow this audience for an audience that is worthy of our guests that we will have coming on here. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you, the former chairman of Rockdale County, Richard Oden, who is running for re-election as chairman of Rockdale County. Good evening, Richard.
Good evening, Larry Cox, and hello, Ken. How are you doing, young man?
Very well, thank you, Mr. Oden. How are you?
Man, I am incredible.
Looking good this evening.
Thank you so very much. You guys looking dapper as well. I want to first say thank you, Larry, and Ken, for allowing me the opportunity to come before this body and share with you my positioning and my priorities. And I look forward to the conversation. I look forward to the questions. I look forward to sharing with those who are listening so they can get a clear-cut picture as to who Richard Oden is and where we're headed into the future and beyond. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, so Richard, what I like for all the candidates to do when they come on, and your daughter actually was on the show the other day. She did great on the show, and she might have told you how the show went a little bit. So what I like to do is I like to give the candidate an opportunity to introduce themselves, get a little bit of their personal background, and why they decided to run for office. So the floor is yours for the next few minutes.
Okay, thank you so very much. For those who don't know me or have just met me, my name is Richard Oden. I am originally from Akron, Ohio, called the rubber capital of the world. And I relocated to Georgia in 1975 to play professional football for the Atlanta Falcons. Needless to say, that didn't work so well. But I decided to stay, and I became homeless because I couldn't adjust to $3.25 an hour with a college degree in industrial relations and communications. Fast forward, I met a beautiful lady when my car broke down on a MARTA bus. So I had to get to work, and this lady today is my partner, my friend, my wife, and in October will be 42 years. I have 5 children, 2 adult sons and 3 adult daughters. I have 9 grandchildren, and soon to be having 2 more great grandchildren. And so this opportunity came about as a result of some unfortunate situations that occurred. I am a Kent State University graduate. You hear me talk about the Golden Flashes. Yes, I did play football with Nick Saban. He was a quarterback,
and Jack Lambert.
And Jack Lambert.
You are, dude. I love Jack Lambert. You're my hero. So
I was a captain of the football team, and to this day, we are the only team that won the MAC Conference Championship in Division I. And I was down. My wife and I was down in Tuscaloosa last year for a visit with Nick Saban at his invite, because they were recognizing me here in Rockdale County, leading the slate of 8. And he was so tickled. We went down and spent the time down there in Tuscaloosa. And we still remain, we hadn't seen him in 50 years, but it was like we'd never even missed a beat. The day he retired, I was on the phone with his assistant, working on a project in Birmingham where I've been for the last 3 years. And within an hour after that, I realized that he decided to retire. So that's my next statement. So, and we will connect again soon. But that's not the reason why I decided to run. I'm a certified advanced county commissioner. You achieve that objective through the University of Georgia, to Carl Vitz Institute. I'm probably the only candidate who has an advanced degree, which is like a master's degree in government services. I'm a former member of Dale Carnegie training programs, how to influence people. I am an associate trainer for that. So I use the people skills I've learned over the years, 25 years with Anheuser-Busch as a marketing and brand and management strategist locally here. I've traveled the country with this process. We created new brands. We moved Budweiser Light from 7th to 1st. So I just some business experience. So when I decided to come to Rockdale County and bring my family in 1999, we sold our property in DeKalb County. I liked the school system. My wife liked the school system for our young daughters. So we built a home here, a little small little home, and we've been there. And I got immediately involved in a guy by the name of Norman Wheeler. I met him. He said, well, why don't you come and join the SPLOST program? I said, what is a SPLOST program? He said, special purpose local option sales tax. I said, well, what do y'all do? He said, we look at the county and we make things happen for the county, for the greater good of the community. And I joined that program with them. They appointed me, and for 16 years, I served on all SPLOST. And then what happened is I, decided to leave Anheuser-Busch, and I got asked to join the Juvenile Eating Reporting Program as a speaker, as executive director. I did so. And so from there, I kept volunteering. I think that should be a criteria for everybody to run for office. Volunteer first. Don't just go and run for office. But that's just who I am, and I'm going to shut my mouth here. And I have a lot of other accomplishments while in office, way before office. So I'll just close my mouth, Larry, and hopefully, I've answered some of those questions for some people.
Thank you, Richard. So Ken, if you want to go ahead and start and ask Richard the first question.
So while property taxes are a really big issue right now, especially as everybody just received their assessments and are still in a bit of a state of shock about them, I'd like to address one of the things that people talk about all the time, and that's the courthouse issue, or the judicial administration center, as it's now being called. The current administration wanted to build this in Old Town, and there was a lot of opposition to it. So they put together a committee that was put together specifically to rubber stamp this. They chose the committee people, I think on the basis that they were going to go forward. They hired an outside consultant to push this forward and to get it rubber stamped and approved. Unfortunately for them, that didn't happen. There was a group that really did their work, really did the research, and found that this was going to be a very expensive project and came up with an alternative at Parker Road.
You're talking about the 2018 committee, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in that committee, one of the members was actually threatened by the consultant almost physically to try and force this thing through. As it turned out, the committee was deadlocked, but in a referendum on this, 75% of the county voted against it being built in O Town. There were several committee meetings about the same thing. So there's a lot of opposition. So, Richard, how do you feel about this? What do you think should be done? We do need a new courthouse. I know nobody's arguing that. What do you think should be done?
Well, that's a great question in terms of the courthouse issue in Rockdale County. This is not a new issue. This was an issue during my 8 years administration. It was an issue during Roy Middlebrooks administration. It was an issue during Norman Wheeler's administration and Arthur Vaughn's administration. And I appreciate the fact that Norman Wheeler took the courage, which cost him his position as chairman, to go down and buy that Maxell building on Parker Road. It's 42 acres down there. And he bought that property, and people said, well, why do you buy that property? So he took the heat. I was volunteering at that time. And I realized something. That's 42 acres. And he said, okay, that's for the courthouse. So what we did when I got elected in 2008, we put a team together to do some research about which would be the best location for this courthouse. We had those 42 acres over there. and you had 6 acres in Old Town. So just do the math there. So when you look at the 42 acres, that would have been roughly, that would have cost us $62 million in 12, 10, 11, 12, and 13. That would have took us 14 to 16 months to complete. We had consultants do the job. It cost us $90,000 plus to do that project. And we looked at another side. We said, well, let's look at downtown Conyers as well. We looked at Bank Street, not at Mill Street in the corner. We looked at Bank Street, and we had the renditions that they had those paperwork. That was a $90,000 job. And so it would have been further down on 6 acres, which is the city owned that. So, and at that point, it would cost $80 million. So if you take $80 million for 6 acres, or $60 million for 42 acres, which is sit right next door to Wheeler Park, and you put the courthouse in, and we did this, what they call a spatialization study. We went to every different constitutional officer, every district court, and we did a spatialization. Those documents should be still there. And we came up with this plan to build the courthouse, judicial center. In addition to that, there was a plan also to build new county administration buildings, also on that same property. So you have one-stop shop. That's the story, the backline behind this scenario. And I'm probably one of the few persons and probably really know that Janice Van Ness was she was a commissioner. She became a commissioner at this time. So she probably know of that scenario as well. But I had the plans. We put it together. She was a commissioner, as was Oz Nesbitt, and I was a chairman. And we put that plan in play, and we were in a recession. It was in a recession, so we just sat on that plan, and we wanted to bring it forth right, but there were so many other issues we had to deal with. So, Ken, did I kind of answer your question? Kind of the proper.
I have a bit of a follow-up on that one, Mr. Oden. The courthouse, when it was going to be built, they originally tried to borrow the money of $140 million for this project, and really there were no plans, there was no investigation, there was no trying to figure out how much it was going to cost. That figure was just the maximum amount that they could borrow in bonds that the state would allow them to borrow. When that sort of fell through, they came up with a Public Facilities Authority, which locked them down to $110 million that they could borrow. Do you believe that this judicial center in downtown can be built for $110? And if you don't, what do you think the ultimate cost is going to be?
That's a great question. And when you look at the consulting strategies behind the Public Facilities Authority, that's nothing new. That happens all over the state, all over the country. So whatever council came from wherever it came, I think you should research that council because that gave the Board of Commissioners the autonomy and authority to move around the citizens of the community without their engagement. That's wrong. That's wrong. So when you look at that piece there, that 140 million, that's going to be a challenge because, number one, when you look at that, what they did the clearing for the dirt throwing, there's a building behind there called the old Sheriff Department on Millstead. All those things are archived. You can't really expand Millstead to 2, 3, 4 lanes. You can't expand Main Street because it's landlocked. Just landlocked in there. Maybe that's why the city didn't build their new facility in downtown Conyers. So I have a challenge with that. Now, when you look at that, it should have went further down Bank Street. The plans were thought when we did a study in 2009 and 10, further down on Bank Street, which probably is owned by the city. Well, I'll get in that later on. But that 140 million is only probably a surface because the infrastructure is we're going to really tear you up. Once you start digging and going in the ground, you're talking about 100 plus, however old Conyers is, that's how old this infrastructure is. And so you're going to run into more and more issues as you go down the way. And so that is a issue. And at the same time, this bond that you're going to have, who's going to pay for that bond? Well, here again, you can see the tax increases. And we got to find a way to reduce and stop the pain. The damage is done. We have to find a way as a community to how we come together and fix it. So
Well, let me do a follow up on it. So, Richard, let's just say you get elected, you adopt this terrible project. How are you going to deal with it?
well, one of the first things we look like to do in any business decision making process, you got to swing back and do an assessment. You got to swing back and do a forensic audit. That's the first one, to find out where the pain and the gaps are really hidden. When you have people guiding you and they've been dismissed from other municipalities, and he or she is your chief financial consultant, you got to start researching this kind of stuff and see what's going on here. So I would really like to do an assessment, do a forensic audit, and then bring the citizens back engaged as a community. And together we can determine how we're going to approach this thing. What's the best use for our resources? We hadn't taken that loan down yet, so it's there if we need it. But let's figure out other strategies. And that's what I would like to see.
Well, you know, I deal with federal contracts, state contracts all the time, right? So
Yes.
our contracts are either increased or decreased, right?
That's correct.
So when we're talking about, well, we've already committed to this builder, this and that. Remember, all deals are made to be broken. That's just that's and especially when you're talking about government contracts. Government contracts are contracts that have estimated value, top end and bottom end. So there are things that we can do with this. If you guys whoever gets in there next, if you're elected, you're going to have a decision make is how much further do you want to go down the road with this project? Because you can backtrack that them, and when people say they can't, they're not being honest with the taxpayers. Well, I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. Well, that's a great a viewpoint. Contracts are contracts, and contracts are amended, added, or reduced.
Yes.
So you have to look at this from a business perspective, and get smarter people around you to understand contracts and bonds, and let those people help you, guide you on how to maneuver and to maximize this effort. We do know we have the ability to go 140 or 200 million, but if you don't have the money, if you don't have economic development, if you don't have it, you can't spend it.
Yeah, I do want to answer a question here because there's some misconception about Parker Road too, right? Because people think that whole 42 acres is locked down, Richard, and it's not.
That's right.
And I'll let you, because one of the persons, they make a comment that's a 10 years and it's ironclad. I agree that building in that small portion is sort of ironclad and locked down. But Richard, do you know how much available? Because the majority of that land is still available.
Absolutely, this land is still available because for $12 a year to a nonprofit organization, that's a 10-year lease, and I understand.
It's only for the building.
Just for the building. The land belongs to the county. It's the citizens of Rockdale County. Okay, that's point blank.
So we could still utilize that. And I think they're right now what they're attempting to do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they're attempting to invest about $500,000 over there on a skate park and some sort of parks. Well, let me just tell you, Richard, you know what? A couple of bulldozers and excavator and and that $500,000 is grounded. And if that at the end of the day, you remove something that's $500,000 to save me 50, 20 million, 30 million, that's a great investment every day of the week as a taxpayer.
Well, we first of all, we are all taxpayers.
Yes.
And and the board of commissioners and everyone who serves in public service works for us, the taxpayer. When Richard Oden was chairman of Rockdale County, I worked for the community. You cannot be in this thing to cut deals for personal gain. You'll get yourself messed up. You see it time and time again. It's about integrity, fiscal accountability, smart, good government, and fiscal accountability. And also you got to understand transparency. So when you look at Parker Road and you look at those pieces, Walk Park, those are just minor things. But the main thing is we own the dirt, and you have to have citizens oversight with you to be able to put what's doable on that property, and you just for a whole lot less. But I understand, I may be wrong here, Larry and Ken, and you guys can share with me that the agreement was cut where if whatever they invested into the building or in the property, the county must pay them back.
No, you're correct. You are
What
correct.
I understand is that while the lease is, I see people saying it's ironclad, the reality of it is, my understanding is that the lease can be cancelled. But if the lease is cancelled, then the county has to pay the restoration storehouse for any improvements or anything that they've done to the property. They have to be repaid all of that.
Yeah, but then they went in there and did that tricky thing where they brought Head Start in, Richard, and you and I both know.
Right.
You sign a long-term deal with Head Start. That's a different ball game. That is a hard lease that you're not getting out of that unless.
So one of the things that was written into the PFA agreement for this was that if you look at property, the value of properties have increased tremendously over the last few years. And so there's been a tremendous influx of taxes, but that money has already been spent and committed for other things. So written in there is that in order to pay for this, they have the ability to raise an unlimited, and the word is written in there as unlimited amount of ad valorem taxes. So while they may not get this from property taxes, they do have the ability to collect taxes through the as ad valorem taxes, and that is unlimited. So we're going to, as our property has pretty much stabilized now, so we're not going to see an enormous increase in property values over the next few years. I think the values are pretty much stabilized because of the high interest rates. People are not buying property. So they're not going to be able to continue to raise money by simply raising the value of property. So they're going to have to resort to some other form of taxation, and they've created a gateway for them to do that through an unlimited ad valorem taxes. So would you have a comment on that?
Well, when you look at the, there's several things inside there. You mentioned the Head Start agreement. That's a hard lock agreement potentially. But if you do the research and you get your legal team involved in it, you might find there's some stuff inside there that you might be able to reverse that decision.
And you can always find them a location that's equal or suitable, and they will agree to move, right, Richard?
Exactly. So that's one piece there. And so I believe in Head Start. I believe in the children because I have grandchildren, and many of us. We have to be in a better position to utilize our resources. When you talk about ad valorem taxes, Ken, that's just a way of getting an additional penny here and a penny there.
Absolutely.
There's other ways to do that, and we showed that strategy years back when we dealing with our state folks, and we needed to get grant dollars. And I can tell you what we were able to do is that through grant dollars, we were able to go ahead and we were able to get requested from those transportation. We requested $1,206,000, $546, and it required no match as a grant. And what we wanted to do, we wanted to take on 2 or 3 different projects. One was the widening of the Honey Creek Bridge on Honey Creek Road, so we can get buses across that road. We did that, and it cost taxpayers 1 penny. We also wanted to expand the G's Mill and Sigmund Road expansion project to make it interchangeable. We did that project in there. We also did other pieces to mitigate traffic on 138. We were able to get that bridge up the road, up on the Main Street, up under behind Home Depot. That was our project. That's vision moving. So we reduced some of that traffic. We also knew we were going down Old Covenant Highway to what he called Kirchy Drive Parkway, and we're going to jump over there and get that non-accessible bridge over there, which is now taking place, to move over I-20 down there. Then it was just called Church in the Now, and it terminates over at Flat Shoals Road. The money was already in the pot, but that project was moved from 20-something to 2026, 27, 2030, and that money was already in place. So all this stuff that we're just falling behind on what we're doing. And I don't want to get into too much because I want to be sure that we understand that that we have a strategic plan, alignment in play. It's been in play with the Department of Transportation, Department of Community Affairs, ACCG. There's a lot of things out there we can deal with without going to the ad valorem tax route, without going to the SPLOST route. So there's grants out there.
I have
Richard,
one more question because I don't want to run out of time here. And on a
well, is it no? Let's not change the topic a second because we've got a follow up on ad valorem and taxes, which is an important issue, and it's House Bill 581. Because we can't talk about taxes moving forward unless we mention 581, which will be on the ballot in November. And once it passes, it will change the game as it comes to assessing properties and the taxes we pay,
right.
creating an additional 1 cent tax that can only be used to offset ad valorem taxes. So, and Richard, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna tell people I gave you a little heads up to check into this so that you would know, because I told you I was going to ask you about it. And it is a game changer for counties, BOCs, and cities. So
Right.
would you, because what I see as a problem is cities, counties, and BOEs have the opportunity to opt out. And I see that as a bad thing for taxpayers, seniors, and especially senior citizens. So could you explain to me how you look at 581, how it will impact property taxes moving forward in the future?
Well, a couple of days ago, you mentioned something about House Bill 581, and I mentioned to you that I need to see that bill. I can look at it. I hadn't had the opportunity. Man, I've been having me boots on the ground, knocking on doors, and so I'm going to look at that bill because it's due up in November, I believe you said.
Well, it's going to be a ballot initiative that is going to overwhelmingly pass because it is going to freeze people's property values.
Well, I still need to.
I know you, but Richard, but this is the kind of legislation that anybody that was going to run for office, they need to know this because it changes the game on how you do your budget because it's that important.
Well, I don't want to be combative or conflictive, but I'm going to have, as a leader, I'm going to look at that bill. I'm not just going to make an off the decision.
Well, no, but I gave you several days I'm just going to be hard because
I appreciate that. But several days I've been on the ground running, and
I know you've been. But Richard, I've been on the ground running too. I'm running a campaign, running a business, running. I get you, right? But this piece of legislation is very important.
I'm going to look at this legislation and come back to you guys.
Well, and I'm going to be. You're not the only person, right? I don't think anybody running for this office is aware of what this legislation is going to do, and all of you need to do your homework on it because it's something that is going to impact how county governments, city governments, and BOEs finance their budgets moving forward. It's going to be that impactful.
Understood. And anytime you have a potential game changer that stops the increases on the citizens, I definitely want to take a look at that. Anyone should take a look at that because if it's going to my senior citizen, I'm a senior.
Exactly.
I'm someone on a fixed income, as well. And when you start messing with the seniors on fixed income and my veterans and my children, you got problems with me. You're fighting me because the children are my future. The seniors is my wisdom. Okay. And so I'm going to look at that bill when I get a chance. Let's look at it. And it's going to be soon. But right now, my goal is to be reelected on May 21st and address these local issues in terms of, like I said before, my priorities are simple. Lowering taxes. Now, how do I lower these taxes? I'm going to lower these taxes because once again, what we executed in 2008 to 2013, we're going to look at that tax digest. And we're going to show you, like we did, move from 61% residential digest to 50% by 2013. If we did it before, we can do it again, but we'll do it better. When you look at the commercial digest, okay, we did corporate calls, and we moved the needle from 19%, increased it to 25%, so everyone's paying a fair share, and it doesn't impact the citizens or the residents. So I don't want to get too deep into that, but that's simple stuff. And then when you talk about fiscal accountability, being transparent. We talked about this for 20 minutes about transparency. These hidden agendas, these committees are setting up that people don't even know about. Then you're throwing a vote on them in the middle of the day. It's not right. Then you talk about smart economic development. I love this part because that doesn't mean warehouses with forklift drivers. Once you introduce a police, and I was told by a commissioner, We're going to dust off your plans. Dust off my plans. Yeah. We wanted to talk about now bioscience, biomedical, and advanced engineering. Well, thank you for realizing 10 years later that we should already be there. So we look at these kinds of scenarios. I'm ready to hit the ground running on day one. There's no learning curve for me. I'm going to research this HB 581, and if it's beneficial for the community, it's going to be beneficial for the board.
Larry, if I look at a question there from Bill Campbell, where he says the BOC can opt out of 581. My understanding is that they can only opt out for the first 2 years. Is that correct?
That's not true. They opt out forever.
Oh, they can opt out forever.
If they opt out, they opt out.
They opt out.
But they won't be able to take advantage of the new 1 cent tax or any of that.
Right.
The way the legislation is now, that the property could only increase by the increase of inflation, the inflationary rate. Let's just say your home value was at 200, it goes up to 250. You get a floating homestead to cover that other 50,000. So the value of your house doesn't go up that crazy amount. It would only go up. You would only pay additional taxes based on the rate of inflation, not the assessed value.
Well, I think we covered that one pretty well. So
we did cover it well. And let's go ahead and move on to that question you had, Ken.
Yeah, I'd like to move on here. One of the things that people talk about all the time, and the last time you and I got together last Monday and we spoke about it, you said to me, the problem is it only takes 2 people to create policy and to move forward in the county. And generally in the county, there's a real desire to have at least 5 commissioners and 5 different districts, so that the districts are properly represented by their commissioner, rather than to have at-large commissioners, representing everybody. One of the things that you told me is that the chairman of the Board of Commissioners is really like a CEO position. But the legislation would change that so that the chairman of the board would become a parliamentary position, and the county would actually be managed by a professional county manager who would be responsible to the board. But the chairman would not be a CEO position as it is now. It would be a parliamentary decision only. That legislation is actually in front of the House. And if it's voted for in the next election, I beg your pardon, in the next sitting, that would become law. How do you feel about having 5 commissioners, a city manager, and having the chairman as a parliamentary position only and not as a CEO position?
Here, thank you for that question, Ken. It's a really tight, good question. I'm glad you asked that question. Number one, we all open. We see now that 3 boards, and when I got elected in 2000, when I ran in 2005 and got beat by Janice Van Ness by 200 votes, about this 200 votes, I was proposing 5 commissioners at that point in time then, in 2005. I was told, when you become chairman, you do what you want to do. And so when I became chairman, I looked at this thing and said, let's see how we can make this thing work. Always knowing in the back of my mind that 5 commissioners may be the way to go. I'm open to 5 commissioners. I'm going to be in concert with the democratic values and the values of the community. And if 5 commissioners is the way to go, so we can stop this backdoor 2 commission meeting, cut and deal. It happened to me. It happened to me multiple times. I saw it happening. I didn't like it, but I couldn't do anything about it. Violation of the Sunshine Law. So I'm open to 5. Other discussions had to talk. We had to go down that road when we meet that pathway. The 5 gives us an opportunity. If I need to get at you, Ken, I'm gonna get at you because 2 can talk.
Yeah.
And if there's
there you go. I agree, Richard.
Larry, we can talk.
Yeah, you need to have a conversation, don't you?
Need to have a conversation. That's what I can say about that, Ken. And so when you talk about the game changer, that would help Rockdale County out tremendously, because when they did this back in 67, 69, 70, when they came with city council members 5, and they said we're gonna put the board of county commissioners 3 at large, That was done for a reason. And it stayed that way, and it's still that way. So we have to look at every angle, every opportunity, and deal with this thing. So I hope that answered your question, Ken, that I'm open to 5.
Good.
Good. So somebody did ask a question, Richard, and I think during your administration, didn't you create an ethics panel in Rockdale County, or wasn't one created under your tenure, Richard? And then after you left, it sort of got like all the boards wiped out or something. Why don't you explain? I'll let you explain that because you know about this. Okay.
Well, you know, there's always been an ethics group in Rockdale County, and it consists of 3 or 4 people. And we wanted to make sure that all commissioners and all people were held accountable. And in that first term, if you remember, one of those commissioners did something and didn't report that on the contribution, and it ended up being an ethics complaint that went to the state. That commissioner was fined X number of dollars for violation of that law, that policy. For some reason, Larry, when I left office, we didn't have any complaints. We didn't have any ethics complaints for 8 years. Now all of a sudden we got these complaints going on, and now this body just simply disappeared. I don't understand that, but I'm not in charge of that. But we will revitalize all boards. It reinstitute all boards, citizen boards. We will institute the Rockdale Water Sewer Authority Board with people who want to serve in the community. And any other board, we want to get community access and community engagement. That's the real deal about this doggone thing, and not just the 3-man panel. I call it the Big Six. The Big Six. And I can talk about that if you want me to talk about that briefly. That is
I think you should talk about that because, and then also talk about what we found out at a meeting, because you and I were at this same meeting when we both found out about how they don't meet anymore.
So for years and years and years, the Big Six, who makes all the economic development decisions, and they give direction to the Development Authority and the Conyers Rockdale Economic Development Council. The superintendent of the school board, the president of the school board, the mayor of Conyers, the city manager of Conyers, the board chairman, and a designee. Those 6 people, we met monthly to discuss issues and problems. If you catch those problems monthly as leaders and address those issues. I was told just last week that they moved from monthly to 6 months, quarterly. You can't solve a problem 90 days later when you got these unbelievable increases in permits for building. That's ludicrous. It's not right. You don't catch a problem. So I would like to see, when elected, we're going back to monthly meetings. So that's my thought on that. And for me to hear that noise that we meet every quarter, that's not right. Because when the city annexed property from the county, like they did the Vaughn's property on Middle Chapel Road, and they infringe upon this community down on Lenox Road, where there's $1 million, $2-3 million homes, and you annexed the property on 5 acres, whatever it might be, and you put 1,000 apartments over there next door to their people with with 2 lanes, and then you put another 100 homes in there, and now you got an uproar, not only on No Hills, Fountain Crest, Martha Venue. You create a monster. Then you put a package store over there. It's the tallest building on 138. We got problems, Nassau. We need to solve this problem. Let me close my mouth for now.
So Rich, let's say you opened the door about all the building and all that and everything. Do you think there needs to be a moratorium on all this building in moving forward, and then a really close look at the plan that we have for zoning and building moving forward, and actually sticking to the plan, maybe?
I think at this point, yes, we need to have another moratorium. We did so years back when we wanted to increase our water waste capacity. It took me 3 years to get the sewer water from Covington Highway up under the railroad tracks to the John Deere property. And the Development Authority sold that property and sat there for almost 12 years, 13 years. And within the time we signed that contract, within a year, that property was bought. We were going to go down that, so on the other side of the tracks on Dogwood Road, we were talking about a technology center. I had been all over the country, all over the world, and we had some people interested in putting a technology center there. We got a warehouse there now. So put a moratorium. Yes, we need to have that discussion again.
Ken, do you have another question?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much, Mr. Oden. I appreciate you answering the questions that I asked. These were questions that I get all the time on the Rockdale voter. People will email me and ask me about this, so I thought we'd get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah, and those were good questions. And Richard, I think that moving forward in Rockdale County, you're right. We do need all this open communication, all these citizens boards, taxes need to be under control, and because things have gotten out of control here in Rockdale County.
And I'm going to go back to Ken's question about the change in the form of an enabling act. If you look at that enabling act, it says the Rockdale County chairman shall serve as the chief executive officer. Inside there, you had a county administrator, county manager. You can call him anything you want to call him without changing the enabling act. When you start going to the enabling act, there's other powers in there. Airport, all those things are in there. When you start messing with that, you got a major concern. So I would be cautious about saying that out here because people don't understand the real deal. If you hadn't sat in that position, that chairman has a responsibility not only to manage the county, but that chairman sits on a lot of different active, engaging boards. That's why they have what you call a chief of staff or county administrator or whatever you want to call that person, who stay in the stead of the chairperson when the chairman is out absent. That should be a board responsibility.
But I think it's also up to the people to decide what form of government they want.
Well, it was that way before, right?
Yeah,
And
but it's up to the people. If they want to change, then I believe we let the people answer at the ballot box.
The people speak to that. So I didn't create the Enabling Act. But
if the people want to alter it, the people have the right to alter it.
That's up to them. But they should. That's right. It's up to the people. It's about the people.
It's all about the people.
It's not about Larry. It's not about Ken.
It's not about Larry and Ken. It's about the people. It's about giving the people the opportunity to speak at the ballot box.
One of the biggest problems we've had with this administration is that the people of the county have absolutely not had a voice at all. Everything that they have wanted or voted against, they just steamrolled over, and this administration just does what the heck they want, regardless. The courthouse is such an example of that because there was so much opposition to it, so much in the committee they created, so much afterwards. When you get 75% of the county says no, and this chairman said, I don't care what you think. I'm just going to go ahead and do what I want to do.
Well, don't you get the classic, I think we need to educate you? He says that a lot, right, Richard?
Oh, yeah. Well, he must miseducation somewhere. You know, those of us who went to college or have higher education or even have a high school diploma understand education. Yeah. Communication is education.
See, the other issue we have, Richard, which I know it would not be a problem with you, and that is, I see Corliss is with us, and I did attend a meeting that Corliss put together with Voices of Rockdale, and in that meeting, the issue of all of this explosion of apartments and everything in the county came up, and the Director of Planning and Zoning was actually at that meeting, and he stood up in that meeting and said, we opposed all of this, but the chairman just overrode us. And actually, that is something that happens in this administration all the time. If they don't like the Water Authority Board, they disband it. And this is what's created this revolving door
of directors.
Of directors. It just creates this revolving door of directors in the community, because when the director is put into a position to do a job and he's not allowed to do it and is continuously overridden, that's a problem.
Well, you know, you're absolutely correct, Ken and Larry, on that matter. Continuity in your staff is important. It's my small understanding that we've probably had three to four finance directors, 3 to 4 planning directors, 3 to 4 transportation directors, maybe 2 human resource directors. I don't know. I have not been following this thing, but one of the reasons why I decided to get back in the race after my wife said you can do this, because I see that I love Rockdale County. I'm invested here. I've been a property owner here since 1999, and I've built a home here. I have property in 3 different states, and you must disclaim those. You must disclose all your assets. I don't have any liens against my property for me. I don't have any hidden agendas. It's about this community, and that's why I'm running for the office to reclaim the integrity of this office, have transparency in this office, and all those other things being publicly accessible. I don't care about all the fancy words. I don't speak that well. I'm not no motivational speaker. Never plan to be. I am a people person to train people to be the best they can be and utilize those resources to make a difference in this community that we all have a stake in. We either swim together or we're going to drown together. And I don't plan to drown.
Swim or sink, right, Richard? Swim or sink.
Let me go back to my old saying. John James was my football coach. When I played with Jack Lambert, Abdullah Salon, Cedric Brown, Nick Saban, and others, Gary Pinko, and he said, the way you dress is the way you play. The way you practice is the way you play. And we were misfits, but we became champions. And I know how to become a champion because they elected me captain of the team I ain't going to say how old I am, but to this day, they still don't have that conference championship, and we do. We're going to rebuild the Rockdale County. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to attract bioscience, advanced engineering. We don't have a lot of land mass. We have to utilize what we have. This new data center that's coming down the pipe, 10 jobs? 10 jobs?
10 jobs.
10 jobs? I don't need no more forklift drivers. I love forklift drivers. We need 6-figure income positions to go with our career academy. Get our career academy back on point to where it was years ago. We was graduating students that come. We got to put a place here so these kids can come back and live, work, and play and shop in Rockdale County. And that includes mixed-use smart development with family amenities.
Richard, let's give you 2 minutes, do your closing statement, and then Ken and I we're going to talk about election interference for the last few minutes of the show about the school superintendent.
I would challenge anyone to ask any one of the commissioners to say this. What is your vision and mission statement? I'm going to close on this. Rockdale County is a perfectly positioned community with a rock-solid approach dedicated to excellence in customer service and quality of life and global economic development. That is the mission statement that was created by the staff in 2009, and it still exists today with the new logo. And I ask you to ask anybody to recite that mission statement, word for word. I still remember today because it's etched in my heart. It's etched in my mind. And I would ask every employee in the county so we get on the same page. What is your vision statement and mission statement? We talk about customer service. That's both internal and external. When the phone rings, pick the doggone phone up and answer the phone. Don't send me to a voicemail. I want to hear a live voice about my issues and my problems. And we're going to fix that on day one with all these problems. With your help, Larry, your help, Ken, Corliss Turner help, Republican Party help, Democratic Party help, and restore these boards. Restore these boards, particularly the ethics board, because we got problems if you hold me accountable. You did in 2015, you unelected me, and now you see what you got. I'm Richard Oden. I'm running for re-election, chairman and CEO of Rockdale County Government, and I can guarantee you one thing. You'll get a better shot at this thing, and we need to restore our community, make it more thriving, vibrant, and sustainable. God bless you. And Larry, am I allowed to stay on the call? I got to jump off.
Say what?
Am I allowed to stay on this call, or do I have to jump off?
No, you can stay on. I mean, Ken and I are going to talk. We're going to talk about election interference by the superintendent. If you want to stay on,
I certainly like to stay on, but I want to hear his answers.
Okay, so
thank you.
Thanks, Richard. No, stay on, man. So you're more than welcome. So, Ken, I've talked to you a little bit about what's going on. Alex actually did a show last night, and on the show last night he had Justin Kenny. And Justin did disclose last night on the This Week in Rockdale show that Superintendent Oates had sent him a cease and desist letter that he was no longer supposed to be discussing statistics that he had received at a board meeting. And Ken, that's disturbing because, first of all, when Superintendent Oates sent that email in his capacity as the day-to-day operations person of the Rockdale County school system, he was acting as the leader of a form of government. The First Amendment actually restricts government from interfering with campaigns, elections, and free speech. So not only did, from what I'm finding out, the superintendent sent a cease and desist letter to Mr. Kenny, but he sent it to a couple of other candidates, which tomorrow we will be doing ORRs regarding this. So he sent one to another candidate telling them they had to remove their signs because it had some sort of logo that he didn't agree with. Then he sent another letter to another candidate telling them they were not allowed to contact any employee of the Rockdale County school system. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Do you know the largest employer in Rockdale County? It's the Rockdale County school system. So it most likely employs the largest number of voters of any other employee in the county. So this superintendent has violated the Voting Act. He has violated these candidates' First Amendment right because political speech has been determined by the United States Constitution and by the Supreme Court as one of the one of the biggest forms of protected speech. So when you start interfering with a candidate's right to actually talk to constituents, to actually put their campaign signs out, which has also been designated as a protected form of speech by the United States Supreme Court, and you tell someone they cannot talk about their policy because these numbers came from the school board, this person is really, I don't know if they don't understand the law or they just don't care and they're trying to intimidate people. But this is a real issue with this superintendent reaching out to these individuals and telling people they can't execute or their constitutional right. And specifically when it comes to campaigns, Ken, because you can't do that. You cannot restrict campaign speech.
The issue with Justin Kenny, if Justin Kenny was producing some nonsense figures and making it up, that would be one thing.
No, it's actually not, Ken. Actually,
what he's doing is he is simply quoting the figures that were created by, or the statistics that were created by the superintendent, by Terry Oates himself. So Terry Oates can hardly object to his own figures being quoted in public. If he doesn't like them, that's his problem. But it's his tenure that actually created those numbers. As far as signs and logos are protected under the First Amendment. So a candidate can put their own logo on there. They can put the BOE logo. They can put whatever they want on the sign. All of that is protected speech. So we go back to protected speech. What Terry Oates has to understand is that the First Amendment is not there to protect speech that you agree with. It's specifically there to protect speech that you don't agree with. That's the whole point of the First Amendment, is to protect the speech. So if he doesn't like the speech, he can't do this. Now, the interesting thing, Larry, is that I would have think that the BOE attorney would have advised him of that.
Well, I mean, and you're right. I agree with that. But let me also tell you, Ken, the Supreme Court has ruled even speech that might not be accurate,
Right,
that political speech is protected. But Justin was stating factual numbers.
he was.
So let's just say somebody in a campaign was not stating factual information. That's still protected speech.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because campaign speech is one of the most protected form of speech that is protected by the Constitution and the Supreme Court. So what you have, and Danielle made a comment. So she's got this. It sounds like he's trying to intimidate the people. That's also, and then even she makes the point. Even if Justin was lying, it's not slander or libel. It's probably still protected, and she's correct. It would be protected, but it's very clear to me that you have a superintendent of schools, when he sent those emails out on the board email, their letterhead, acting as superintendent of schools, he was acting as a government official,
Correct.
trying to slow down. I mean, stop free speech.
Trying to really interfere with the election. I mean, that's
he's trying to interfere with the election. Go ahead, Richard.
I'm hearing what I'm hearing, and I want to make sure I'm hearing what I think I heard.
You go ahead, Richard.
It appears to me that the superintendent works for the school board. The school board doesn't work for the superintendent. The superintendent just execute the policies that the school board puts in play. So
exactly.
Where's the problem here? You got role reversal going on here?
We have a role reversal going on.
Okay. I want to make sure
what we have here is that we have a majority of the board who doesn't actually understand what their role is supposed to be, and we definitely have a superintendent who doesn't understand what his role is. And apparently he doesn't understand as superintendent, he doesn't have the right to meddle in an election. So, I mean, we've got a big problem with this superintendent. And Richard, anybody who knows my platform, my number one thing on my platform is to fire Terry Oates. And I'm not bashful about it, right? But I've seen this kind of behavior. I've talked about it. And Richard, you're an idea person to talk to this about. If a sports team is struggling, first person they replace is the head coach.
Head coach. Lakers just did it.
Yeah, because they replace that person because it reflects from the top. Poor performance on the field reflects from poor performance at the top. Poor performance in the classroom is a reflection of poor performance at the top. And now we understand. We see a superintendent who is trying to intimidate candidates and get them to stop reaching out to constituent to voters. Stop putting their means of campaigning out, their signs, telling them they can't campaign on their platform because the information came from the school board's information. This is an overreach. This is actually campaign interference. And we're going to report this. We're going to ask for ORRs. We've already seen the documents, just to let you know. We know they exist, but we're going to report this individual to Secretary of State, Attorney General, and the local prosecuting attorney.
Is the question, here again, I'm just asking questions. Is not the school board a public entity? Public service serving entity?
It's a form of government, yes.
The school board collects taxes to pay employees and so forth and so forth. Then the taxpayers are the owner of the school system.
Yes.
Yes.
The superintendent is not the owner of. So I'm still dealing with this role reversal thing here.
Yeah. So Richard, here's the thing that actually impacts on the county as a whole, right? I moved to Rockdale County in 1987 is when I came here. So a little bit before you. Okay?
Yeah, you got me there.
The job that I moved to, I came here to be president of a company in Covington. I liked Covington. I liked Newton County. I thought it was a great, great place to live. But I chose to live in Rockdale County because of the school system. I had 3 boys that were in high school. Heritage High School was one of the best high schools in the county. And I chose to buy the house where I'm living now that I bought in 1987 because of the school system. So the school system is tremendously important to underpinning everything in the county, everything. So even when you're trying to get industry to come in here, you're trying to get retail businesses to come in here, the first thing they want to know is, do you have educated employees that I can hire to run my business? Number one. That's what I want to know.
That's right. That's right.
Because without an educated employer base, this county is not a very attractive place for any businesses to move in here. And so the BOE actually underpins everything in this county. And the school system, when I go to meetings around here and people talk about the schools, there's nobody that says, wow, the school system's really got better in the last 20 years. It hasn't. It's gone downhill extremely steep.
Well, it's in the last 6 years, it has catapulted. Before 6 years ago, it was in the bottom 50%.
Right.
The top 50%. In the last 6 years, it has dropped to the bottom 50 percentile.
I don't think there's
we have catapulted down here on the last 6 years. And what's a common denominator with that? Terry Oates has been the superintendent.
So I don't on all of these new apartments that are going up and all of the new houses that are going up, I'm extremely doubtful that people are going to move here and say, yeah, I'm going to buy that house. I'd like to live in that apartment because the education system for my children is so awesome. I don't see that happening.
No.
I don't see that happening. They're not going to come here for the education system, which is what populated Rockdale County right in the beginning. It was people moved here because of the school system.
Well, Danielle's got a comment, and this is true. The school system is great if you read their press, and that's right. If you ever go to one of their meetings, and when they roll out the top 15% and their achievements, and the pathway students and the AP students and the people and the students at Magnet, then those are overachieving students and their accomplishments are fantastic. But we're not talking about the rest of the 85%. We're not talking the fact that using the superintendent's numbers, and I got a sheet right here, that 42% of elementary school students read below grade level. That 41% of people graduating from high school read below grade level. That 63% of people graduating from high school can't do math. And those are his numbers before they get adjusted. Now, when you look at the state's numbers, the state says that 80% of students graduating from high school can't do math. The state's numbers say that 61% of high school students can't read at grade level. So I don't know what Rockdale County is doing to the numbers to make them look better than what the state numbers are. But that's part of the problem is you've got a school system that doesn't want to admit they have a problem. Richard, and you and I both know this. If you don't admit you have a problem, you can't fix the problem, can you?
Well, that's right.
So when I moved to Covington and took over the business there, our quality control was pretty bad, and after looking around, the product that we were manufacturing was a blanket for the printing industry that had to be cut to a very specific size to fit a printing press. And when I got into it to discover why this was, I discovered that half the people cutting the blankets couldn't read a tape measure. So this was the Newton County school system at the time were producing students that couldn't even read a tape measure. So when we hired a person in, the first thing we did was to give them a tape measure and ask them to measure something. If they couldn't measure it, we couldn't hire them. So that was the level of education then. That's improved significantly in Newton County, but that's where we are in Rockdale County today.
Yeah, Richard.
Ken just touched on what I love so much. It's called quality control. When I was with the Dale Carnegie Institute programs and also with the Anheuser-Busch National Project Panel, we went into what we called total quality management, which was Edward W. Deming did this project years ago. He turned Japan around.
Of course he did.
I became a master at that total quality management at Anheuser-Busch. We turned a lot of things around. Today it might be called Lean Six Sigma, but it's the godfather that is total quality management. And so when I came to Rockdale County, we instituted what we call the ARGOs, the Rockdale County Government Operating Efficiency System. I found our teams were operating in silos. and we brought the directors together and the deputy directors together and all the staff leaders. That's how we came with our vision mission statement. And I tell you something, when you begin to empower people, the people who work with you, they begin to go into a trajectory that's unbelievable. And we saw it in Rockdale County from 2009 to 2016. We for the first time in history, we were able to capture what they call the CAFR Award, the Certificate of Financial Achievements from the Georgia Association of Government for 8 straight years. We moved the bond rating from a 2.2s, we've got to 3As. We set the stage for this. So quality control, Ken and Larry, it works in Delmar. You guys got quality control when you do projects, especially on federal contracts. So I agree with everything you said there. I get a hot button on quality control. I love that part.
Yeah. It's a very important thing. Even in the county, it really is about quality control. Quality control means a lot of different things, but quality. The real key of quality control is to continuously produce the same product to the same standard all the time, good or bad. And what we have right now, we have quality control that only turns out bad product. We need to get quality control that turns out a better product.
And a better product is our students. And the only way we're going to do that is by turning this Board of Education around, by electing new members to it, and replacing the school superintendent. And then that's what I want the voters to know, that you've got some choices to make. And this is what I think. This is how Larry Cox is voting for school board. I'm voting for Larry Cox for post 1. I'm voting for Justin Kinney for post 3, Darlene Smith for post 4, and Tanae Davis for post 5. If we can get enough of us elected to office, along with 2 other individuals who are already on the board, then we will be able to take the majority of the board back. We will be able to buy out the superintendent's contract, and we will be able to look for that right person to lead Rockdale County's education into the future. So, guys, what I'm asking you to do, make the right choices at the ballot box. Make change on that school board so that we can make change in the superintendent's office so that we can regain the excellence in education that Rockdale County once had. Then, Lisa Lancaster, I'm sorry. There is a special write-in candidate running for post 2, and that's Tucker Cox. And I already know of about 50 votes that Tucker has right now. And every vote that Tucker gets is a protest vote. Richard, if you don't know, Tucker's my Chiweenie dog. And
you know what?
He's my Chiweenie dog. He's my little dog. And he is right now, I know he's got between 50 and 100 votes. People are writing Tucker Cox in as a protest vote. Lisa says I voted for him today. And I have people coming out every day of voting and tell me they voted for Tucker Cox, Richard. But let me just be real. If you've got that many people that are going in and writing in a little 12-pound dog, you know they're not happy with what's going on, don't you?
Well, you can see that in the number of people running for office.
Yes. Okay,
in just about every category that's running opposed. But let me tell you, there's one valuable piece right here for everyone to understand. Rockdale County has a public access station called Channel 23. The school board, the city council, city government, all those people utilize the public access to Channel 23 so they can educate the community on what they're doing. They haven't done it. They don't
want to. They don't want to.
They don't want transparency.
They do not want right now. They do not want transparency. No. Richard, they do not want transparency.
Well, we got to change as a community, folk.
Yeah, Tucker is in the person that's running in post 2 is in an unopposed. They're unopposed. So Tucker is our protest vote in that unopposed race, Richard. Gotcha. Just so you know. But guys, I want to close out the show. I want to thank Ken and Richard for both coming on tonight. I want to thank the audience for attending tonight. And guys, you know what? Send some protest emails to the Board of Education. Tell Terry Oates to cease and desist. Tell Terry Oates to cease and desist is what I'd like you to do. And when I get these emails, Ken, when I get these emails, these ORR requests, and I get them back, I'd like the Rockdale voter to actually run a series on this, to send out a letter, a series, and let the people know that, you know, we've had this government official trying to use his position as a government leader to interfere with an election. This needs to be public knowledge.
Oh, we get them out. We'll get them. We'll get them out.
So guys, thanks for joining me. Everybody, thanks for watching in the show, and I will see you Wednesday night, because I believe Judge Maureen Wood will be joining me Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on This Week from Rockdale, a special candidate edition. Good night. You guys can stay on. We'll be on afterwards, but good night and see you Wednesday.